Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with another topic from the Toxic Encounters book. So, this topic is financial security, and you can find exploration of this topic in chapter 2 of the book, which is titled Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships, Part 1. And it is part 1 of a 3-part series. So, financial security is a very, it's a topic that we don't really give a lot of attention to because we think it's more along the lines of an individual decision, your individual relationship with money. But taking into account your individual relationship with money is important if you are going to enter a romantic relationship. What you do with your money and how you use it to fund your life, your lifestyle, your work, anything that you are doing is subject to your prerogative. You have every right to make the financial decisions you want to make, regardless of any consideration of a romantic partner. That logic only works if you want to remain single. You would be within your rights to choose any financial strategy, whether that financial strategy leads to financial instability or financial stability. That's your right. But when you decide that you want to enter a romantic relationship, and I'm not talking really about one that is concerned with dating, more along the lines of courtship possibly leading to marriage, or for some people, courtship leading to live-in situations, long-term partnerships, common law marriage. Then finances are important. The financial talk is important. If you struggle to have any money in the bank at all as an individual, you're definitely going to struggle with the person who cares about having money in the bank at the end of the month. You may call that person frugal, cheap, thrifty, but what that person is doing is demonstrating and modeling good financial behavior, that you never leave yourself uncovered. Even as an individual, you never leave yourself financially uncovered. That's why you have to be careful about how you volunteer your money. That just because you have an extra $1,200 in the bank doesn't necessarily mean that you give any portion of that money to a friend, a family member, or a romantic partner. If your rent is $1,200 and you have an extra $1,200 after paying the current month's rent or mortgage, then you really don't have an extra $1,200, because suppose you lost your job. You would need that $1,200 that's in the bank. Now, if you had $7,500 in the bank, portion of that would go to 2 or 3 months towards future rent if you lost your job. But then you would have to take into consideration car payments, insurance, anything else that you would have to pay if you lost your job. And that's what we have to consider. We think just because we have extra money in the bank that we have that to give to someone. And if you are making those types of financial decisions as an individual, you will not be able to make those types of decisions while you are married or in a long-term partnership. Because what if your partner loses his or her job? Then you would have to pick up the slack in the relationship. So financial security is one of those strategies that we need to begin early. I wish, and many people have noted this as well, that I wish we had financial planning classes maybe as early as middle school, so that we understand the value of money, how money moves, how money needs to be worked, how money needs to be saved, how money needs to be spent. That if we had a very good understanding as early as possible, that we do in some cases connect money to work when parents give us chores and assign us chores, and then they may give us a few dollars or something like that. But there's no sit down lesson with it. It is wash the dishes, I give you $2. Well, in some cases, you're supposed to wash the dishes anyway. I mean, you messed them up yourself anyway. So that's part of living in a household and contributing. You shouldn't necessarily get paid for that. What parents, I believe, should do is connect a financial lesson. Have the kids do something that is much more productive and much more real world applicable, because they would have to understand that money is earned. It's not given, it's earned, the majority of money. And so if they maybe the child has a little bit of a lawnmower business or something like that, and he focuses on 3 clients around the neighborhood, and he charges them $10 or something, and um, and you sit down with him and help him understand what the income is, or income potential is, what the expenses would be. You would have to purchase any sort of tools or um, anything that's related to lawn mowing, and what revenues look like after he has paid expenses. And so when it's connected to a lesson, people have a better understanding. If you are at a certain age, in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, still struggling with money, still not having enough money, still working and giving your money away, that is a recipe for disaster, financial disaster within a relationship. And the thing about finances, it is one of those factors that contribute to the decisions for people to get a divorce. And I don't think it's because people don't love each other. People may be in fear about their finances, and people might have come from poor backgrounds and they don't want to be poor anymore. And you using up all the money or giving all the money away to your family members is going to contribute to them being poor. And some people are very much triggered by that. If their parents had to move them from place to place to place to place, they had to live with people, they were homeless, they never had any money, they had to get food stamps, they had to get welfare. All of those are factors that go into considerations of divorcing you based upon finances alone, because people don't want to live like how they lived in the past. So, financial security is a topic that is explored in Chapter 2, and I'm just going to read it and the questions and then add analysis. So, financial security is a main concern in most, if not all, romantic relationships. Imperfect finances are one of the major drivers of divorce. So, here are your questions. How important is developing a financial plan? Should your finances be stable before entering a romantic relationship, even marriage? Since bad finances is a major contributor to divorce or long-term partner breakups, shouldn't individuals undergo pre-marital, pre-relationship financial planning? And then lastly, how important is communication about finances? So financial planning is something that, again, we need to start very early. And if we don't have the benefit of understanding money and financial management early enough, then we need to really begin thinking about it as soon as we turn 18. It should not be something that we sort of slip into. It should be something that we make a decision about, that we seek to find out and understand about how to manage money. And we do end up having jobs 18, 19, 20 years old, and we kind of do well in terms of managing whatever we get with that. But where we go wrong, as I noted before, is when we have outside influences, external influences, who say, okay, I need $25, I need $100, I need this, I need you to take me here, I need you to pay pay me the gas or something like that. There are distinctions between what you owe somebody in terms of consideration and what that person thinks you owe them. So if someone is riding you around in their car, you should pay gas money. But you don't necessarily owe that person gas money if you are not in the car, right? So a financial plan, if you were looking at this just from your own individual uh, perspective first, you know that you are 100% responsible for you as an adult individual. It doesn't necessarily matter that you didn't get everything that you got in childhood to young adulthood until you decided to leave the house. It may be a factor, and you could argue that your parents did not prepare you well. But regardless, once you decide to exit that house, you are responsible for your financial decisions. So that means when you are thinking about your financial plan, you have to take into consideration your emotions, emotional regulation. You cannot deal money using your emotions, or allow someone else's emotions in terms of you dealing money, because you're going to find that people are like little toddlers. They're like little toddlers. They will pout and fall out on the floor until you give them what they want. And you have to remember in those situations that you are not that person's parent. In some cases, you may have to parent yourself. As I noted, that you may not have gotten all that you needed as an understanding when it came to um, learning about finances. So you may have to parent yourself in certain ways. So developing a financial plan you must consider the fact that you are 100% responsible for yourself. You must consider your own emotions. You must consider your own plans. What do you plan to do? Because all your plans is going to require at some point some money. There are some things you can do for free. You can do a lot of things for free now that we have the internet and we have social media. But eventually, you're going to have to put money on a plan on what you want to do. So, does that include going to school, going to college? Does that include um, maybe starting a business, right? So, developing a financial plan just from your individual perspective requires you to do a number of things and requires you to consider a number of factors. Now, apply this concept of financial planning to the context of a marriage or of a long-term partnership. Um, Financial planning is going to require that you both sit at the table. You can't operate alone. You're going to have to sit at the table and reveal your financial gaps in thinking, your financial flaws, anything that you owe, anything that you want to do. And you're going to have to humble yourself. It's just obvious, because as long as you were by yourself and you were making bad financial decisions, and some good, you didn't necessarily have to be accountable to anyone, and you didn't have a spotlight on you. But once you are exposed to someone, especially if someone is really good with their money, they've managed to use the job they have, buy a house with it, buy a new car, maybe some property, start a business, and they were able to do all that with a focused financial plan. It may not have necessarily been something that was written down, or they might have kept a journal or something like that, but somehow they got a clue about that very early in life, that that is very important to have a focused objective when it comes to financial planning. Well, if you're not that kind of person, I'm not saying you are a loose person with money, but it does matter if you have too much credit card debt and you are wanting to bring that into a marriage. That in some cases you may need to create a financial campaign to cut down that credit card debt, because it's not right for your future mate to take on that debt. In the same way that if your future mate has to pay child support and they are behind on their child support, I understand that you want to come together and work this issue out and resolve this issue, but the person doesn't learn the lesson he or she needs to learn when you pay the child support for that person. That's still that person's child, and the court assigned the responsibility of child support to that parent. Doesn't mean that you don't love the child, doesn't mean that you're not going to fund the child when the child comes to the house, feed the child, clothe the child. That does I'm not Those are two different things. um, uh, we need to be careful about taking on the financial responsibilities of people who are responsible individually for certain things. If a man says the woman has to pay all her credit cards, right, that she's responsible for her student loans and her credit cards, then the woman should say the same thing to the man, that you need to pay all of your child support. You need to pay all of your outstanding obligations, right? Now, of course, that's not necessarily coming together in terms of sharing the financial load. But in that case, you are really only responsible for sharing the financial load when it comes to immediate, basic, um, basic necessities like shelter costs, car costs, house costs, all those types of costs. But the individual debt that you bring into a relationship, I think you should pay that. You should develop a really hardcore campaign. Demonstrate to your partner that this is a concern to you and that you have been paying on this and developing a campaign to get this down, and that by the time he marries you or you marry him, it's so little in terms of the debt obligation that you both just going ahead and decide to pay it off so you can move on to greater battles. That's a little different. But if you're coming in with 10 cards, credit cards, and all of them are maxed out, and they probably total about $25,000 or whatever, that's going to impact your ability for both of you to get a house. Okay, that's one, because you have too much debt. And then if your debt is outweighing your income, that's really going to be a big problem. Okay. So these are some factors you want to consider, because there are some individual considerations that you have to do, that if you started a financial campaign to pay down your debt, you need to continue that. You don't change that strategy just because you get married and assume your husband or your wife is going to assume that debt. That's not really their prerogative. Yes, you're supposed to cover each other, you're supposed to cling to each other, and you are supposed to become one. But you also, as an individual person, still need to be financially responsible, because if you do not resolve your issues with financial planning, it's going to infect the marriage, meaning that it's going to create a virus in the marriage, and it's going to have an impact on his finances, which will ultimately have an impact on the marriage relationship. So number two, should your finances be stable before entering into a romantic relationship, even marriage? I don't think, now that I understand the importance of finances, and you know, in reflecting on some of the decisions I have made in my past, I don't think anyone, including myself, should be worried about a romantic relationship when there's a lot of financial debt that needs to be paid down. Because if you get into relationships, you're going to be spending money, right? I think it is a distraction to be in a romantic relationship when you are heavily in debt, when there are some outstanding things that you need to complete and resolve and get over. That there is a process that you have when you are overcoming, say, a financial setback that you need to endure. And that bringing in an external influence, bringing in any type of distractions, entertaining them will get you off track. Because on down the road is where it actually matters. That here it is, in your 20s, you have so much debt, but later in your 40s, you want to buy a house. Well, if you didn't take the time in your at the end of your 20s and then your 30s to get your money right is going to have an impact on you purchasing a house. And then what if you want to get married? And it's really important, especially if you decide that you want to retire from your job or leave your job, leave the workforce and go into business, but you got all of this debt and now you want to also marry. So you want the partner you have, the potential partner you are interested in, to take on your debt while you have decided also to quit your job. And so those types of decisions are individual decisions that you need to assume and resolve on your own. You don't lay that burden on someone else just because. Just because you know that person loves you, and just because you love that person, and I know we're here to work this thing out. No, you created a decision prior to the relationship, and you need to see that decision all the way through. Even if you had a $25,000 debt and you managed to pay off $20,000 and then decided to marry at $5,000, that's a little better than you creating the debt and then marrying at $25,000. So, should your finances be stable before entering into a romantic relationship? Yes, I do believe that. I do. You should not have so much debt on the books that it outweighs your income. Now, there may be some exceptions to the rule because student loans and mortgage loans are considered good debt. And so, in some cases, if you're making a lot of money, or you come into some money or you win some money, it may be a really good idea to go on ahead and apply that to the balances so that you don't bring in too much debt. But stability really speaks also to your mindset about how you handle money. People think, for example, if they have a business and they were able to sell their products at a sort of like a road show or something like that, some conference, and they think that's revenue. And so they think that is something that they can spend. What they don't have an understanding of, though, is the principles of accounting. So they haven't sat down with a financial spreadsheet, income statement, cash flow statement, balance sheet, to really see how the money is moving and what they really do have. And so their mindset is, well, if it's in the cash register, then we have it. Not necessarily, not according to the principles of accounting. You might just be at a break even, meaning that you don't owe anybody and you're not really making a profit just yet. And so the mindset of stability requires you to understand basic principles of accounting, basic principles of taxes, basic principles of insurance, anything that is concerning you as an individual, you as the business, or anything else, right? And so stability is about a mindset, how you view money, how you see money, how you interpret money, how you recognize money in terms of whether it's an expense or profit. And so stability, you need everyone, I think everyone needs to take an accounting class. I took accounting. I took one accounting class. It was a very hard class, but I was so intrigued by how things worked on the financial sheet. Now, I didn't get an A in the class, but I don't know, it was just so important for me to learn. And that was the hardest earned C I got, but it was the proudest because I worked my butt off to understand the concepts. Now, I would take it over today. I just needed an accounting class for graduation to meet graduation requirements. But today I would retake that class and go through all those sheets again so that I can just have a really good understanding in terms of moving me towards financial stability. Since bad finances is a major contributor to divorce or long-term partner breakups, shouldn't individuals undergo pre-marital, pre-relationship financial planning? So yes, I do believe that. Not only do we all need to undergo premarital counseling in terms of what it requires, what marriage requires in a relationship, maybe some therapy as well. But sitting down, I think this is one of the just the major factors of the relationship, because can you fund the relationship? If you think about the relationship as a business, can you fund the relationship? Do you both as partners have a two-partner income that if no one really has to make $100,000 each, it would be nice. But I look at it in terms of, as an individual, can you take care of yourself? So then if you are, as an individual, you can take care of yourself, then now we need to both look at our incomes as taking care of each other. So you, if you understand that marriage is a business subject to laws and regulations, statutes, tax laws, accounting laws, all different types of laws, um, then can you fund the relationship? So if you got someone, if you got a single mother, she already has 3 kids, she's not really getting enough in child support, but then she decides to date and she gets this guy who doesn't have a job, but she brings in some kind of income, right? Um, that extra mouth, because he's not a partner, he's really not a partner, he's not he may be a companionship and he may be a bed partner, but he's not a true partner in the sense of a partner. He's looking for a place to live, he's looking for help. So not only does she have to fund 4 mouths, including herself, she's having to fund another mouth, take care of all of the responsibilities in the house, um, um, go out and work, still try to find childcare and pay childcare because the individual doesn't want to work. Okay, those, when you're thinking about um, premarital, pre-relationship, one of the questions that you need to ask yourself about your potential partner is, does the person have a work ethic? If you look at the person and they tell you, that person tells you they only stay on the job for 2 years, that's going to be a problem. I mean, nothing in them has ever stayed on a job beyond 2 years, so they jump from job to job. And sometimes you may have to take into consideration certain industries, right? Certain industries. If the person works in the construction industry or something like that, jobs are intermittent or something. Okay, well, that's a little different. They still need to secure stable work, or work on securing stable work. But there are certain industries that are like that, right? But that person shouldn't be in their 40s still supporting the belief system that I only stay on the job for 2 years. I mean, you're not necessarily asking them to have a career, but they should definitely have some kind of, financial stability. And so then when they are not working, who are they living with? Because they don't have enough financial sense to save up for the times when they don't have work. Because why would they need to come and live with you? And so these are some of the questions. Does that person have a work ethic? Does that person believe in improving himself or herself? Maybe taking some classes, getting a certificate in something, because not all jobs last, forever. That it used to be years ago that people could do a job for 25 years and retire. You barely get 5 years today. And sometimes the 5 years is really part-time years. So because jobs don't want to pay health care. So these are the things that you want to consider when you are thinking about the relationship, because can you fund the relationship is a very important question. In the same way, do you have the financial resources to fund the car that you want to buy? Right? That's why these places ask you for your paycheck stubs and your financial records and anything else that you want to give them, like assets, because they want to know, can you fund the loan? And so if you think about it like that, in terms of your relationship being a business, can you fund the relationship? Especially if you get into a marriage and one of you gets sick, do you have enough financial resources on your own to cover you both? So that's a question also I want you to think about. And then lastly, how important is communication about finances? People don't like you asking them questions about their money. And I really do understand that. I just got to say it again. People don't like you asking questions about their money. But I also don't want their money tainted either. I don't want their money. I don't, it goes back to the work ethic question too, because I don't want you doing anything illegal either. I don't want my money connected to your money if you are doing something wrong with your money. I don't want. There's a aspect of the money that we need to discuss as two potential partners. How much of the money is going out, again, to child support? How much of the money is going out to alimony? How much of the money is going out to a tax obligation? How much of the money is going out to fund a child's education, private education, or college or something like that? These are percentages that we need to address. How much of my money is going out to student loan payments? How much of my money is going out to fund my entrepreneurial pursuits? How much of the money is going out to a mother who is at the nursing home and I need to pay for her nursing home or special insurance or something like that? How much of the money is going out to paying a past mortgage, right? Many people who were part of the recession are still having to pay on the mortgages that they that were connected to the houses they lost. They are still responsible for those debts. Those people who lost homes, the seaside collapse, or people whose houses are falling into the sea, they will still be responsible for those loans. Now, hopefully they have the right kind of insurance to at least offset some costs, but you still are financially responsible unless you sort of use bankruptcy as a option. And then we would have to discuss that, because if we are merging our finances together, your bankruptcy might affect my ability to get anything on my own as well, or through the marriage. So communication about finances, you can't really go with this attitude fully that I don't want you to know about my finances and I don't want to talk about my finances. I have every right to keep my finances to myself, and you don't have a right to my finances. But if something happens with you, if we file jointly our taxes and you end up owing taxes, the IRS could take my part of my refund to offset costs with your taxes. So then I am responsible for your finances too. So it's important that we communicate about these, because I remember a person who got married, but the man did not tell the woman, his new wife, that he had a tax obligation. So she ended up being responsible for it. Now you can file paperwork. The IRS allows you to file paperwork concerning that to get off the, I forgot how to say it, but to not be responsible for your husband's tax obligation. But you still may end up having to pay it and then ask for it back. And the IRS is not quick organization. You may get that a year later. You may get the money back a year later. So communication about finances is just really, really important. So these are this is the topic of financial security explored in Chapter 2. The book Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships, Part 1, is available on Amazon. You can visit my website, reginayfavors.com, for tips. Like, subscribe, and follow. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and just type in Regina Y. Favors. Thank you very much for listening.